myself on Discord real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the stream. It is a glorious Tabletop Tuesday, and we're going to get the announcements done quickly. So we got our sponsor, which is Shockbite Gaming Servers. Link is down below. Servers start at $2.50 a month and go up from there, depending on your server needs. So there is that. We also have our aid to artists. If you want to help them out, by all means, here are the links: Broken Looney and Yamak Arts. So if you want to get your name added to the list, by all means, please send us a link. Let us see your art, and then we'll go from there. And the third announcement: on Sunday, we'll be doing a extra live stream where I will be trying to earn money for the Children's Hospital. I keep wanting to fucking say museum, but it's hospital. Hospital. Christ. Alright, so, yeah, that'll be Sunday, and I'll be giving away some free games. I'll be doing all kinds of fun stuff, so that is what it is. Alright? So with that being said, let's get to the chatting. There we go. And our, of course, tabletop companion, CandidGamera.
Hello.
And I'll be playing some Elite Dangerous while we're talking. Trying to get some reputation done. So, God, if I don't choke on my lungs here. So, the topic of today was going to be playing the bad guy, or making a good villain. Because, go ahead.
No, I was just, I hadn't heard the topic under discussion. So yes, that is an interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I always want to preface this. I want to be able to make good villains without becoming the asshole. Because some DMs actually have that issue.
That's fair, yeah.
So, there is that compartmentalization you have to do between the character, the villain, and you. And that's something we probably should also cover as well.
Incoming message.
Because that is important. Oh boy.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of fun things about villains or antagonists to cover. Because not all villains are antagonists, and not all antagonists are villains.
Yes, frequently that is the case, but yeah, there are exceptions which can be very interesting.
Like, sometimes your antagonist can be nature. It's like man versus nature. So, like, you're dealing with the weather, you're dealing with animals, you're dealing with all kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
And that could be your antagonist. It's not a villain, but it's there. And sometimes the villain may not be an antagonist. It might be something you have to work with in order to get the job done.
Sure. In some stories, you even might have a villain protagonist, but usually in the RPG context, you'd be meaning like a villain party.
Yeah. Which, those are always fun. Because that's what I'm running right now, is an evil game. And those are sometimes problematic.
Yeah. They can be very tricky to run. You have to have the right group for it. You kind of... Session 0 is very extra important when you're doing an evil game. I've been in a couple, some of which have gone horribly wrong right away.
Oh, yeah. Where, like, players start backstabbing each other and it's all going to hell real quick.
There's that aspect, yes. I recall one of the GMs that I played with years ago wanted to start an evil game, and two of the players wanted to basically you trade in class levels to be demons. So I think it was a 3.0, 3.5 era game, and so they were going to be demons with class levels. And I was like, well, I could just be an evil cleric, which would give me, if I take the right feats, the ability to rebuke evil outsiders, so I could effectively make the party do whatever I want. And they're like, oh,
Yeah,
there's a downside there.
Yeah, there's bad. That's bad. Or like if someone wants to play like an undead, like a lich or a vampire, and you're like, oh hey, I'm a evil cleric and I have rebuke undead.
Yeah.
It's like that. That'll end badly.
But yeah, and then of course the other thing that I've run into is where someone takes evil party to mean like absolutely disgusting, beyond the pale evil. Like the rest of us were playing villains, but you were playing like a sadistic torturer and orphan murderer. Yeah, we didn't sign on for that.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I saw one game where the party had, and they weren't bad guys, but they had a bunch of skeletons or something as minions.
Uh-huh.
And or I forget, I think it was skeletons. And they did exactly what they were told. And so, at one point, they accidentally burnt down the orphanage. No, they burnt down the, yeah. I think it was either the orphanage or the mayor's house or something. And so, they they told the skeletons to rebuild it. And so they're like, okay. And so they double checked to make sure that they didn't take the bricks from any other buildings, because that happened once.
Oh.
They're like, yeah, build this building. And so they started by taking bricks from other buildings.
Right.
And it's like, that's not good. But then they're like, okay, so they double checked to make sure, like, when they checked the second time, they're like, you didn't take any bricks from other buildings, right? And they're like, yes, that's correct. And it goes, okay, what about the orphans? What happened to the orphans? Well, the orphans are not in the bricks, boss. And they're like, okay. And then one of the girls goes, what about the mortar? What's in the mortar? What did you make the mortar out of? And then suddenly, like, the skeleton kind of looks downtrodden for a second and then goes, orphans, boss. It's like, yeah, you gotta be a little precise about what you tell them to do. But I wouldn't call that necessarily a player doing evil shit. It's more of the...
No. And honestly, that's kind of over the top enough that it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's orphans, boss.
But yeah, I was in an evil game, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to accumulate arcane power and knowledge, and my buddy was like, he was, a mercenary willing to sell his sword for whatever to try and make money. And then we had the guy who was like skinning children to like make himself masks, and it was like, holy shit, dude, come on.
It's like, see you later, far.
We're evil, we're not like sick. So we just weren't on the same page in terms of what was meant by evil game.
Glistening Fey Fox. Greetings from the Feywilds. Hey, thank you, Glistening. Welcome. Yeah, if everybody's not on the same page, you can do some heinous shit, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
It is just like, nope.
All kinds of nope.
Yeah, I was just like, oh... like I've had an evil, like most of the time when I've had evil parties that have gone off the rails, it's usually because one or two players have the I must have the biggest penis syndrome.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens. It's like, I have to be the most powerful person here, everyone must listen to me, I'm the most awesome person. And it's like, no.
No, even in an evil game, the purpose of an RPG campaign is for everybody to have fun. And if what you're doing is meaning that not everybody can have fun, you're doing it wrong, and you need to tweak your approach.
Yeah, and now here's my thing. I'm going to say the class that has given me the most trouble in evil games, and I bet you good money Yours is along the same lines.
Okay.
All right. Rogues. Rogues or like rogue-like characters. It's always the stealthy, assassin-y, like, you know, I must do big damage numbers.
I would say that, honestly, I the ones that I've seen the most problems out of tend to be more of the anti-paladin types are usually good for some trouble.
The lawful stupid.
Well, like, you know, just lawful evil and very religiously motivated such that, oh yeah, they are definitely going to cause trouble and they are going to be 100% convinced that they are doing exactly the right thing for their religion or philosophy the whole time they're doing it. That can be difficult to work around just because they're so fixated on, yeah, this is what needs to be done. I'm right. Why don't you acknowledge how right I am?
Yeah. Glistening Faye Fox just says, I sell my flute on the corner of the street. I mean, that's one way to make money.
But yeah, the other one, you depends on the player, but you can definitely have someone who's playing the evil wizard or other high spellcaster just take things off the rails if you're going to high levels, just because of the power at their disposal.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Every time I've run an evil game, my wizards have always been the type of people that have kept it working with the party or manipulating the party. Because it's like, it's been people like Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, Glistening Faye Fox is like playing music. I'm like, okay, music is acceptable in the tavern. We'll take music. But like Mike has usually been my, whenever I've run evil games, usually the wizard from the games I've had problematic players.
Right.
So he's not been the issue.
No.
Like, he works with the party. He usually kind of manipulates them, kind of corrals them in the right direction. He's usually pretty good about making sure they go in the right place to do the right thing. At least in his mind.
Exactly.
So that has rarely been the case for me. The gentleman in particular that's given me the most trouble was back in the day, Rucker.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in 2 or 3 of my... So chaotic neutral is not evil. No, but a lot of people play chaotic neutral as evil.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, I can't be evil in this game, so I'm going to play chaotic neutral instead. And essentially play chaotic evil.
Or they have the interpretation of chaotic neutral just means I do whatever I want all the time, which is not exactly what you should be playing chaotic neutral as.
Yeah. No, chaotic neutral is not always chaotic evil. The best way to describe chaotic neutral is you are very much in the moment, you take everything on a case-by-case basis, and you are neither good nor evil.
Right.
You kind of just like, you do the right thing some of the times, but at some of the times you're selfish. And that's the biggest thing between good and evil, I think is the best example, is selfishness versus selflessness. Is the easiest way I can describe it to newer players. A good character is selfless, where a evil character is selfish.
Sure.
And that's easier to roleplay. And so, if you're going to be an evil game, you need to be selfish, but you need to be selfish in a way that benefits everybody in the group.
Yeah.
You have to have a collective goal. That's the other reason why Session Zero is important. You all need a collective goal.
Yeah, because if the game just devolves into different players infighting over the direction of the party, that is not fun for anybody in the long term.
No, PvP is not a thing usually. There's only one type of D&D game that usually works in, and that's usually run in game stores or conventions. And I believe the term is called the West March game. Which is, you have a lot of characters, you have a lot of players, and everybody's kind of politically interacting. And they all have their, like, political goals and stuff. Very Game of Thrones-y. And I've played in one West March game, maybe two, if memory serves.
I was going to say a lot of, like, World of Darkness LARP type environments strike me that way.
Yeah, World of Darkness LARP is very much that way. It's everybody has their own goals, but a lot of LARPs, unless they're run by like large organizations that are national, tend to break down into who has the biggest penis or who's sucking up to the storyteller. Glistening Fey Fox. All my characters have been chaotic neutral. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to have an alignment that you're good with. It's just, you have to understand that chaotic neutral does not necessarily mean you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Just be cognizant of that, because there are three alignments, in my opinion, that are the most problematic alignments in D&D I've ever encountered.
Okay.
Lawful good, otherwise known as lawful stupid,
Yeah.
chaotic neutral, and chaotic evil. Those have been the three I've personally run into that have been the most problematic. Lawful good because they tend to proselytize, they tend to try to run over everyone, saying my way is the right way, no one else's way is the right way. You have to listen to me. And that's really dumb.
Yep.
Excuse me while I choke on my lungs here. Excuse me. With chaotic neutral, I've run into where people have been, how do I put it? Oh, did I not post? Oh, I don't have permission, never mind. Chaotic neutral has been the type of characters that they basically wanted to be lawful, chaotic evil, but they just couldn't because the DM disallowed evil. Is kind of the way they play it, and that's the problematic characters there.
I also sometimes see the LOL random kind of chaotic neutral, which has its own problems.
Yeah, that's true. Where it's like, well, I'm just gonna do whatever I want and, you know, cause absolute chaos as much as possible.
Yeah, those players tend to basically not engage with the game world as if it is a real world. It's like they're the ones that's going to go grab a fish and take it to an audience with the king so they can slap the king with a fish.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Like, why would you do this? This is dumb. It's like, why? And then for me, chaotic evil is the third one, and that's the same complaints I have with chaotic neutral, except, you know, now evil's allowed. And it usually ends extremely poorly. Because they tend to stab other people in the back, because the people who play chaotic evil are usually the first to, if they don't get their way in the group, to go to violence in the game. And I mean in-game, not, like, physical.
Yeah. I gotcha.
I want to specify there. Because we've had stories where we've had physical violence at games.
Yes.
Oh boy. So, there is that. Would I say I would never allow a chaotic neutral character in my game? No, I've allowed them before, and there's nothing wrong with them. As long as they're run like, not random Randy, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you actually have a personality other than, oh, lol, I'm so random.
Yeah.
Because that does nothing but annoy the everlasting shit out of me.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna play a villain, or if you're a DM and you're making a villain, there are several things I recommend. One, any villainous character, you are the proactive force in the story. And you have to keep that in mind. The heroes are a reactive force in a story.
Generally, yes.
So, you need a driving force. Or your villain does, if you're the DM. Your villain needs a driving force, or you need a driving force as the villainous character. Something that makes you go. Like, there's a villainous character I want to run at one point. That is a 15 levels of Paladin and 5 levels of Warlock. Alright? And he was the leader of a country. He got stabbed in the back. And in the process of being stabbed in the back by his underling, he lost all of his power. Both literal in his country control, but also his classes. So, like, him leveling and everything is not necessarily him learning new tricks, but him regaining his power. Glistening Fox, I do what I deem as right and listen to others if they disagree with me. That's the way to do chaotic neutral. I feel like that's probably the best thing to do. Oh, excuse me. But his whole goal is to basically rebuild, retake his throne, regain his ability, and that's his driving force. That's his main thing he's trying to do.
Sure.
And it's a good driving force. It's a mixture of revenge and regaining power. So, it is what it is, right there. And that's a classic story. I wouldn't call it unique or customized, but it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all you need. You don't need to have your motivation be original. Got something up my nose. Goddamn. Damn allergies, man.
Yeah. Yeah, the villains should be doing things that inspire the players to react. The villain can be complex or it can be simple. You can have a villain that your players sympathize with, and you know, it's like, oh man, if you only was going about this a different way, we could be on the same side. Or you can be just like, that guy's just an asshole.
Kill him. Let's kill him.
And both kinds of villains are fun.
Oh yeah, and don't be afraid to have both in your game.
Yes.
Because, like, a evil organization is not a monolith. So, like, you could have what the leader of the organization be the asshole that you want to shank and stab, and have one of his underlings be someone like, if this person was just on the right side, we could work it out. Or the opposite, where the leader is just that way, and one of the underlings is like, fuck this guy, we want to stab the hell out of him.
Or they could be villains in two separate organizations. You know, some campaigns you'll have, multiple plots, maybe running it consecutively or maybe running at the same time. They could even be evil organizations that are opposed to each other. That's fun. You have the potential for some villain-on-villain combat where the player characters are like, maybe if we talk to this one guy in the right way, he'll help us with the other guy.
Yeah,
those temptations.
Oh yeah, I'll give a good example. The last game I ran that had a lot of players was called To Make a King. And there was an evil cult that was attempting to revitalize Rovagug, which is basically the god of, I'm going to eat everything and destroy everything. And the party was trying to get a bunch of planar creatures on their side to help fight this cult. Well, they went to the Celestials and got them to agree, and they got essentially Desna, Iomade, and Sarenrae to agree to help out in their religions. Then they went to the Hells, and they spoke to Asmodeus. They did not want to do this. They did not want to talk to essentially Satan. But they did. And they made a deal to get his assistance to deal with this cult.
Uh-huh.
And that was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, multiple party members had a blast with it. One of them was an alchemist who threw a, I want to say a pheromone packet into a dinner.
Yeah.
And that resulted in entertainment.
I'll bet.
He eventually got stopped, thankfully, before too much craziness happened. But suffice to say, like, they had fun. And the final battle was absolute craziness. There was, like, freaking angels flying from the sky down, demons rising from the earth, hordes of orcs running across the field. They got multiple countries involved that were throwing, like, siege weaponry and stuff at the cultist main base and all this jazz. It was like this giant battle that was almost like Lord of the Rings like.
Sure.
And it was fun. They had a blast with it. And the party's goal was to break into the base and then deal with the leader and the leadership while the bulk of the army was outside fighting. Which is, by the way, a good way to deal with that. Treat your heroes like a strike force.
Frameshift drive charging.
Because, like, I've seen so many DMs try to, like, make the players in the battle.
Yeah.
Like the mass combat battle. And that is such a pain in the ass. Mass combat rules are not fun.
Yeah, I've seen good implementations of mass combat rules, but I've seen many more bad implementations. And unless your players are explicitly on board for whatever version of the rules you're using, it's not something that's easy to pull off in an entertaining way.
Yeah. I mostly just turned the mass combat into like a cinematic scene and had them act to affect the scene slightly.
Sure.
Which I felt was probably the best option until they got into the base to be the strike team.
Yeah.
Which worked out. So that was fun. But with villains, yeah, definitely give them a goal, give them a driving force. And the driving force doesn't have to be something big and awe-inspiring. It can be as simple as petty revenge. It can be they want to save a family member or a loved one. Like, people have done some crazy shit for romance. I mean, look at some myths, man. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, fuck, what was it? The Odyssey and the Trojan War?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's like, fuck it, let's have a 40-year war over, you know, a beautiful woman. Let's go. Because that will end well. I mean, for good gods, we had, what was it, a city burned to the ground, hundreds if not thousands of soldiers die.
Yeah.
All because a young man decided, hey, this girl's pretty, I'm going to take her home, even though she's married to someone else.
Yep.
That'll end well. Yeah, if you need inspiration for villains, look up myths. A lot of myths. And twist them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Helen of Troy thing is a great example of you can take that, twist it, and turn it into a villainous arc. Easily. From either side. Because you could easily do it from, was it Paris? Paris's point of view? and make him the villain, like a kidnapper or something. Or you could go from Agamemnon's point of view. I think it was Agamemnon, if memory serves.
Agamemnon.
Yeah, where he is the abusive husband, and like the kid was trying to save the woman, and you got that. Yeah, the seduction, or yeah, you can make the woman the villain, where she's playing both guys against each other and use seduction. I mean, boom, you got 3 options right there, and that was all in what, like less than 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like boom, and that's from one story. It's like
I was gonna say, the myths can give you good examples, or things that you've encountered in books. I can't imagine how many D&D campaigns have been run with like Sauron of Middle Earth as kind of the inspiration for the main villain. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah. Same with movies or comic books or.
Absolutely. One of the games I'm running right now is basically a Guardians of the Galaxy pastiche, and the main villain is, well, his motivation hasn't become apparent to the characters yet, and his motivation is different, but he's a very Thanos-like figure in that, people who should be able to take on anything physically have gone up against him and been crushed down. So he's kind of like a force of nature, and no one quite knows how to stop him. Draw inspiration from anywhere and everywhere.
Glistening Faye Fox says, I often use it to help others under my own free will. Yeah, if you want to use seduction to help people, that's also cool. That works. What are other things? You can also use video games too.
Sure. Absolutely.
You just my recommendation is don't go wholesale ripoff.
No.
Like, take creative inspiration from it, but don't just say, oh, it's this character exactly.
Yes.
Because that's where the problems arise. One example I caught was, I saw a YouTube video where a guy described the villain, and I loved his description of the villain so much that I ended up using it in my To Make a King game. But it was a different kind of villain. Like, he did it as, like, the big bad evil guy, and I did it as just one of the underlings. It just happened to be a magic user.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, this guy, floats off the ground because it's like touching the earth is beneath him. Kind of thing. And he's very well dressed and very arrogant and all that jazz. And I can't remember the full description. Like, I would have to find the video again at some point. But, like, it was so well said. I was just like, I gotta use this description at least once because it's very well done. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just build a different character. Because, like...
I was going to... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you bring up another good point with that discussion, and that, your lieutenants for your villain can be just as important and just as interesting. So, any villain worth putting in your game deserves at least one lieutenant, because that way the player characters have somebody to fight when they're lower level. You have another opportunity to use, maybe you had some ideas that don't fit with the main villain, but now you can put them on the lieutenant and still use them.
Yeah, lieutenant, like, for example, my guy was a necromancer. And he also had an underling of his own that was under his control, which was called Behemoth, which was a undead minotaur barbarian. That was not intelligent, was just straight up meat. It was there to be beat on. And what drove it even more home for the party was every time the party killed it, it had contingency teleport on it, and it would teleport the corpse back to its owner.
Yeah.
And he would use a spell to realize what killed it, and then he'd make modifications to his undead
Uh-huh.
to make it more resistant to what killed it last.
Sure.
Like, further improving it, and then sending it back out at the party. As, like, this reoccurring undead villain that was, like, almost like a Jason Voorhees kind of thing chasing them.
Yep.
Oh, horror movies. Don't be afraid to use horror movies. They make good villains. Because that was my inspiration for Behemoth, was essentially Jason Voorhees. Like, that feeling that, you know, the people have when they're being chased by him.
Sure.
Like, this just brute, this unstoppable brute just slowly hunting you.
Though I will say that don't expect to get the same kind of fear out of players in D&D
As a horror movie.
as a horror movie, because D&D player characters are far too competent and have too many abilities to be terrorized the way a horror protagonist might be.
This is true. But, like, usually the thing I was going for was more of a oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get that from your villain, you've made a good, like, scary villain for the players. Where they have that moment, they're like, oh shit. Like, this guy is a problem, or fuck, we might be in danger here.
Yeah.
And if you can get that kind of a reaction for even a small moment, you've done a good job. If that's your goal, is to get that fear reaction, that's the best you're going to get from your players. It's not going to be a consistent, like, I'm scared, run away. No, it's not going to be that. It's just going to be, oh, shit. And usually when you have a scary enemy or a scary villain, the players are going to see that more as a puzzle than they are going to see it as fearful. If that makes sense.
Oh, no. Yeah, basically what combination of our abilities will resolve this in our favor.
Yeah, like where we won't get completely fucked.
Because, I mean, they're just assumptions that are made when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like, the GM is not going to put us in a situation with an enemy that we have absolutely no hope of overcoming, generally speaking.
Generally. I normally don't do that unless my players do something epically stupid.
Yeah.
And usually that's after several, are you sure about this? Statements. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, okay, really? Alright. Consequences are a thing.
Absolutely.
Also, no man is an island in D&D as well. So, whatever your villains do, they're going to affect the world. And that's kind of their goal. They want to change the world. They want to do something to modify the world in their favor. Or they have an end goal in mind. That is a change to the world. Surprisingly, your villains are going to be some of the biggest activists you will have in D&D. If that makes sense. I feel like you would agree with me on at least that one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, your villains are going to be agents of change. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Well, I will say there is the exception of, the setup where the villain is the evil overlord who already controls everything, and the heroes are trying to free the world from his evil influence.
Yeah.
That is kind of the other flip side of that, where the player characters become the revolutionaries, the rebels, the activists.
Yeah. And that's usually, how do I put it? Those are very particular games.
Yeah, it's not the typical D&D setup.
Right.
I think it's an interesting one to do sometimes. Basically, the villain's already won. what are you going to do to undo that?
Yeah, how are you going to fix this? And that can be fun to play. I mean, it's a classic for a reason.
Oh yeah.
But that type of game, you definitely need sneaky people.
Sure.
And a good social character. Also, another thing I've seen a lot is a lot of DMs like to focus their villains on either physical or magical prowess. Alright? Do not be afraid of having a villain of social prowess. And sometimes they could be the most deadly.
And they're so much fun to play.
Yeah. Especially if they're a smart and social character. If they know what they're doing and they know how to deal with, like, upstarts, they could be really fun. A good example of a social villain, if you want from media, is Game of Thrones, and that would be, I think it's Tywin Lannister?
Tywin is the patriarch of the family?
Yeah, the patriarch. He's a good example of a social, intelligent character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his flaws are what ended up killing him. But he is still a social and mental character.
Frameshift drive charging.
And so that's a really good example.
Yeah, Game of Thrones actually has several social villains. Littlefinger and Varys. Depending on your view of Varys as whether or not he's a villain, but
Yeah, it's fair.
Littlefinger is definitely a social villain.
Oh yeah, he just overplayed his hand. That was his biggest problem. And that's what screwed him over.
Yeah.
Daenerys is also a social villain, but she is not nearly as social as the others.
Yeah, and until the end, not really so much the villain, but
Yeah. What about
took a
killing
turn with
off a
her.
player character to turn them into a villain?
to turn the dead player character, like somebody gets taken by a vampire.
Are you talking about like they did something and you had to kill them, or like the person who's doing the killing becomes the villain? Because that's the question. Because those
Yeah,
both have different results.
I was reading it more as, basically you killed a person, like with a vampire, and they came back as undead, and now they're a villain.
I mean, that's an option.
I would say that killing a player character and turning them into an NPC villain is something I would always do very carefully. I would make sure that the player was okay with it.
Yeah, make sure they're on board, definitely.
I would not be usually having them continue to play the character. It would be definitely an NPC. But yeah, if they were okay with me sort of adopting their character after death, then, sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's not terrible. And if it's the flip side where you killed another player and you're becoming the villain, once again, that's still turning you into an NPC as the killer. Because you're going to have to leave the party at that point because the party knows you killed someone. Usually.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you become the villain in a party game, you are no longer going to be part of the party.
Yeah, you can't play that character anymore. With a few exceptions. Like, there are a few different game styles where you could have one character as the hidden villain. And they're working with the party to, like, accomplish their goals. Like, we talked about this where Mike did that once.
Yep.
And he did it beautifully. But that one requires a lot of planning. And I mean a lot of planning. And the player and the DM have to have a lot of communication back and forth, staying on the same page. And they have to be under also the understanding that if they're caught as the villain, they can't play that character anymore.
Yeah. I had once that I had a player basically come in who his character was secretly working for one of the villains, and once it was revealed that he could not play that character with the party anymore, so essentially that character became an NPC and the player created a new character for adventuring with the party. It was a good trick, but it's not something that, led to him playing that character after that point.
I played in a game that Matt ran, and he had me be the villain. Or one of the villains anyway, because there was a villainous organization.
Sure.
And I had traveled with the party to get things done. But I also talked to Matt and built a second character, just in case my rogue was found.
Yeah.
Like, there was the very real possibility that could happen. Are you okay?
Just body not quite nice well a med doc gave me, and because I refused to take it after a couple days of it making me violently ill.
Okay. Okay.
This was wholeheartedly blaming the doctors for giving your wife medication to try and make her better.
Fair enough.
Made me worse.
But no, in that game, I made a rogue. It was a halfling rogue. This was 3.5, mind you. And I built him as like a spy.
Sure.
So his whole thing was gathering information, utilizing that information, throwing down poisons, things of that nature. And I was actually doing a really good job to where none of the party suspected that the poisons that kept appearing in the villains we were going after were me.
Uh-huh.
They were all thinking it was one of the other players who
Sure.
I think had knowledge craft alchemy. So they're like, oh, it's this person. He has craft alchemy. He's the one who can make all the poisons. And I'm sitting here going like, I have 15, like, I have X number of ranks in craft alchemy, just enough to build poisons, but not like focusing in it.
Yep.
And like, they don't suspect it, which was hilarious. So they all thought it was the like the caster type person.
Right.
And unfortunately, the game fell apart. Like, Matt's a good person and all, but he just can't improv.
Kind of have to have
And that is one of the critical GM skills. Like, there are a whole set of skills to be a GM, and if you can master at least, half of them, you can probably do it okay. But improv is one of the more critical ones because every time the players are going to do something you didn't think of.
Yeah, you are not going to expect something, and they're going to surprise you with it, and you're like, oh shit, I'm going to have to make something up on the fly.
Yeah, no plan survives contact with the player characters.
Ever. Especially Mike.
Yeah.
Drive charging.
Mike is exceptionally good at fucking plans. You're not much better.
Why, thank you.
Glistening Fox is like, exactly. Yeah. Like the two players who have given me the biggest headaches for any time I've made plans has been Mike and Gamera. Hands
Yeah.
down. You two bastards love to just be like, hey, you have a plan? That's adorable. Let's fuck it.
Yeah.
We're supposed to go X or Y? We're gonna go A.
No, it's like you have choices A, B, and C, and they're like, no, fuck it, we're going banana. And they're like, what the fuck? It's like, and it, like, it still makes sense for the story.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Not what I expected.
So you can't argue with it, but at the same time, you're like sitting there going, fuck, I didn't think of that. Fuck, I didn't think of that either. Son of a bitch. And this is exceptionally hard when you have to play an intelligent villain.
Yes. That is also a good area of sub-discussion is, playing your villains smart. I know
or dumb.
Well, yeah, that's true, but it's challenge for a player to play a character that's smarter than they are. It's an even greater challenge in some regards for a GM to play a villain that's smarter than they are, because I mean, the GM always has the fallback tool of, well, now I know what the PCs are doing. I can just pretend that the villain knew that was going to happen. But that's really unsatisfying and railroady. And
I would recommend it if it was something that was moderately predictable.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say, is if this is something that the villain absolutely 100% should have thought of, like, the thermal exhaust ports aren't armored. Oh, shit, I should have thought of that. But, yeah, sometimes the players are going to come at you with something you have not planned, is totally unexpected out of left field, and you're sitting there with this super genius villain. It's like, how does he respond to this, or how does she respond to this? And that's when you really have to be good at improvisation.
I would also say one other thing with smart villains, not dumb villains, smart villains. 9 times out of 10, they have an escape plan.
Yes.
And they will not fight to the death.
And that's what I was actually leading towards, is if you have, the player characters have completely outmaneuvered your super smart villain, and, it's like, well, I don't want to, punish their creativity by just completely neutralizing their plan. At the very least, you can have the villain have some clever exit. And that is the best prep you can do, is always have an exit for your super smart villain.
And have more than one.
And have more than one. Have an emergency exit that they might be able to guess and counteract, and then have one that's a little more out of left field that the player characters probably aren't going to think of.
Okay. Anne's going to go out and play in her garden. She's letting me know.
All right.
But yeah. Have also, don't be afraid to have the villain throw minions at the enemy to distract them while they escape too. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes, we have reinforcements.
Yep. I am the kind of player who tries to think of what the GM is not thinking of, which is not a bad idea to do. But at the same time, you got to think of one other thing. Try to remember how intelligent your character is compared to you. Alright? It's okay to be sometimes smarter than your character, but don't... What's the word I'm looking for?
Ooh.
You know what I'm going for, and I can't think of the words.
I'm not actually sure where you were going, so help me out here.
Like knowing... Well, it's more than just metagaming. Metagaming's part of it. Like,
okay.
Like, you don't want to metagame. That's bad.
No. Well, I mean, there are limited circumstances where metagaming is not the worst thing, but yeah, generally speaking, you're not there to try and, say, well, I've got a +5 to hit, and I know that I can reasonably hit him, 60% of the time. So yeah, don't overdo it with your calculations and turning it into just a set of numbers.
Yeah. But also, like, not knowing, like say, like, for example, something happened to another character.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Don't act like you were there.
No.
And also the same applies to the villain. Like, your villains cannot be omnipotent.
No.
Smart villains, though, on the other hand, once they realize the party exists and realize that they're a threat. Hey, Ein, how's it going? Welcome. One of the things I have my villains do frequently, especially if my party doesn't do any non-detection,
Mm-hmm.
is scry on the party.
Sure.
All the time. Or frequently.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like, just enough to, like, make the point is like, okay, I know what they're doing, what they're up to, kind of thing. Or have one of their underlings scry for them.
Even better.
Yeah. Until, once again, you know, like, unless they become a direct threat to the villain.
Yeah.
To where, you know, it requires their direct attention. Another cool thing you can do to make your villain seem frightening is make them not care about the players.
Frameshift drive charging.
If you get where I'm getting at with that one, Gamera?
Oh yeah, I mean, basically, if the villain seems like, oh, you know, you guys are essentially a speed bump for me, then they will definitely seem a little more threatening.
Like, I saw a TikTok video that perfectly, like, exemplifies it, and it came from DBZ Abridged, I think it was. And it was like, okay, what's your gimmick? And they're like, gimmick? We're just here for your planet. He goes, alright, like, what do you mean gimmick? And he goes, well, like, you all have some sort of weird, stupid thing about you, like, so on and so forth. And then, like, the guy who was speaking goes, well, if I were to say anything, I'm the pretty one. And the guy goes, well, 6 out of 10. It's like, oh, you sassy bitch. and then he turns to, like, another one and goes, you must be the small one with the freaky powers. He goes, I can spot mini-me's. Fantastic. And that must make you the big, dumb, tough one.
Yeah.
Like that's a good way to do your villain. It's just like, oh yeah, I've done this like 1,000 times before. Okay, here we go again.
Absolutely.
I have a theory that you do not know what works until you try. That's true. But it never hurts to look up tools. Or to listen to tools that you can try. And that's why we're here. We're here to offer more tools for your toolbox.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. We are not the foremost experts at, you know, tabletop games, but we are at least experienced, and we, you know, point you in the right direction. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'd say another way to show your villain is threatening is, God, what's his name? Darkseid. How Darkseid stands.
Yes.
It's very much his arms are behind his back. He's very rigid, very uptight. He's not in a defensive position.
Because he's absolutely convinced nothing you do is going to hurt him significantly.
And for the most part, he's right.
Yeah.
There are very few people who can actually hurt him. It's craziness. But Darkseid's a great example of a personality of a villain that shows that he doesn't see you as a threat. So if you want to get a good idea of that, look him up. He's in DC Comics. The Justice League, I think, was the cartoon.
Yes. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Yep. Was he in anything else other than the comics and that show?
I think he made at least a brief appearance in the Superman animated series, which is in the same continuity as the Justice League show.
The voice actor was spot on.
Yeah, who did they... Was that Kevin Michael Richardson that they had for him? Or... No, it was Michael Ironside.
Yeah, let me see.
Great voice.
I think it was Michael Ironside, because it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Let me see. Where's IMDb? IMDb, come on, give me IMDb. Justice League Unlimited. I think it's called Destroyer. Yeah, that's the name of the show.
Or the episode.
The episode. Yeah. Where are you? Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash. There's top cast. Can we see the whole cast? Let's see. Dark side. Yeah, it was Michael Ironside. Yep, you
Yeah.
had it right. I just wanted to be sure because I was like, I'm fairly certain that's his voice, but I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah, he's got a great voice for villains.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's that like deep, resonating voice that just shows that he gives zero fucks about your existence.
Yeah, it's nice and gravelly, but it's also very disdainful, arrogant. Just, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. It was just like, oh boy. Yeah, so there is that. And that's another thing you can do with your villains. If you can do voices, don't be afraid to do a voice for your villain. There's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely adds some dimension. Makes it a little more fun for the PCs sometimes.
Oh, yeah. But I would also give your villain one thing about them that it sets them apart from the average person. At least when they're in their natural state. Not when they're disguised, but when they're in their natural state. Because you want your villain to be memorable. And whether that is personality or it's, what else is there? Like some ability they have, maybe. Or
Sure.
even like the clothing they wear. Any of
Or
those. Yeah.
it could be a smell that you describe. You know, maybe they have a particular smell to them because of, you know, the corruption that they've been exposed to. As long as you can describe it vividly for your players, then that can be just a good cue to, like, put it back in their heads. Like, oh yeah, we remember this guy.
Or music.
Sure.
If you have access to like a small little music player or something, you can use music to great effect for your villain. Like pick a nice little villainous theme for them and like crank that puppy on every time they come on. Like, for example, what was I going to say? I want to say LucasArts. Lucasfilms or Lucas Shows, wherever. They did a good job, for example, with, say, Vader, the Emperor, and Thrawn. They all three had their own unique themes. And when they came on, you knew who was coming on the screen. Like, I feel like you recognize that too.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, musical motifs. That also allows a composer to blend in elements like, okay, well, you know, this scene's not about Darth Vader, but he's in it, or we can feel his presence. Therefore, I can reference musically the Darth Vader theme that I came up with.
Yeah.
So music can be very powerful.
And it can also make you feel a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing wrong with that. If you want your players to feel a particular way about a villain, sometimes music can be what the doctor ordered. Like if you're just having that difficulty describing it or doing something to encourage that like feeling that you want from the villain, maybe a little bit of music in the background.
Sure.
Just don't make it overpowering.
No, you got to be able to hear what's going on in the game, so you never want the music to be too loud.
I'm also a player who helps out the DM. That's good to have. Being able to help out the DM, trust me, the DMs appreciate that. Because, man, so many times I've had players not work with me, I've had players work with me, and I tend to appreciate the ones who work with me more than the ones who don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes my job so much easier. Sorry, I gotta clean my glasses, they got smudged. Still got smudged, god damn it.
But, yeah, distinct visuals, distinct, like I said, music or smells, anything that you can particularly associate with that character to make them think of them. That's wonderful.
And don't be afraid to use multiple senses.
Yeah, that's another good point.
You don't have to rely on just one of those. You can use multiples.
On the other hand, avoid the temptation to do 2 paragraphs of flavor text every time they see the villain.
Yeah.
You don't want to go overboard.
Like, maybe the first time they see it, you can go heavy
Yeah.
on the description, but after that point, be brief.
Yeah, and that's another reason why you have, a couple of distinguishing features that will help set the villain's appearance without having to go through the whole description again.
Yeah. And that helps. There's also villainous organizations. There's nothing wrong with using those.
Sure.
Sometimes you don't have one villainous person that you're dealing with, but a whole group of people. Like maybe an assassin's guild, or a cult, or, a religious order that isn't a cult, technically.
Mm-hmm.
Or even another kingdom. Whatever, tends to be what sets off the things. And god dang it, my glasses keep getting smudged. This is going to be my villain tonight.
Oily fingerprints, the villain that will destroy us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of like I mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy style game that I'm running. The main villain has 4 generals, and one of the generals is a priest of a religious order that worships the void. Like they have a belief that all creatures in the galaxy will one day be united in nothingness, and their head priest is one of the generals, and so he's got the creepy religious angle going on, but he's not the main bad guy. But the players have very quickly centered on him as the one that they want to take down first of the generals, because he just pushes their buttons in a particular way. It's like, yeah, he's up to no good. He's definitely got big bad plans. So they're looking for more information on him, trying to find a way to take him down as a stepping stone towards the main bad guy.
Which helps.
Yeah.
And you could be surprised where you can pull sources from.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're like, oh, I'm playing an RPG, so I have to pull, like, villains from RPGs, or, like, certain types of movies. If it's a fantasy movie, it has to be fantasy stuff. No, you could pull a sci-fi villain into a fantasy setting, because you're taking the inspiration. There have been plenty of times where people have made Darth Vader-like characters in D&D.
Oh, absolutely.
That's happened a lot.
Yeah.
And every time it happens, it still sends shivers down players' spines. Because that could be a frightening thing.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, it's the, the King's Enforcer. Oh, he's very big and very strong. Yeah, let's not fuck with him.
Well, and I think the other scary thing about Darth Vader is he used to be a good guy, and now look at him.
Yeah.
That adds a whole other dimension to it, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because, like, this could be us.
Sure.
And so that is...
Incoming mission critical message.
Yeah, that is a reminder of where you could go. I mean, heck, wasn't there, like, a whole thing about Luke and all that for Return of the Jedi where they showed that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no, it wasn't Return of the Jedi. It was
Empire.
Empire, where, like, he slashes off Darth Vader's head, and then the mask blows off, and it's Luke. And it's like, oh! Like, that's some freaky deaky shit.
Uh-huh.
It's like, that I didn't know. I don't like. Especially if you have a paladin in your party.
Yeah.
Oh, that can cause issues for your paladin, especially if they're going crusading.
I mean, honestly, if I were doing a Vader-type villain and there was a Paladin in the party, I'd be very tempted to make that Vader character a former member of whatever order the Paladin was from. It's like, yeah, he was just like you, and something went wrong.
Yeah. But don't specify what.
No, no, no. Got to keep some mystery in it.
Yeah, keep some mystery in there, because if you don't specify what, it makes the Paladin freak out more. He's like sitting there going, fuck, what happened that made him go like that? Like, am I doing that? Like, oh shit. That will cause more fear than the villain itself.
Yeah.
Frameshift drive charged.
Or the villain being right.
Yes, yes.
If the villain, if there's even the slightest hint that the villain is right, that can scare the shit out of your party.
Yeah.
Because your party could look at each other for a moment, and they're playing good characters, and they are actually the good guys. But I've had it at one point where my good characters looked at each other and went, "Are we the bad guys?
We the baddies? Yeah.
Are we the baddies?" It's like, that's a fun moment, because that makes them seriously question everything they've done.
Yep. I do love that subversion where you make the players question, are we on the right side of this?
Yeah.
But I have to say, one of my favorite villain types is the you can't tell if they're a villain or not.
Like, they're doing good, but they're also not doing great.
Either they do good things in a sinister way, or they do bad things, but they're just so pleasant about it. It's like you can't reconcile that this person is a bad person. And the best example I have of the latter is the mayor from season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Because, yeah, he wants to sacrifice most of the town to fuel his transformation to a demon. He's unquestionably a villain, but he's just so darn polite and happy and just, shaking hands and smiling. And I love that kind of character. But I also love the person who's not a villain, really, but is going out of their way to make the player characters uncertain of whether or not they are a villain, because it's just this perfect head screw. One of the characters in the game I'm running right now, again going back to that Church of the Void, after they started researching the Church of the Void, they're like, we got to talk to people, we got to find out more about their abilities, what they're up to. They went to a space station and they met a member of the Church of the Void, and she's very personable. She seems interested in what they're doing. The young prince with mystical artifacts, who's kind of in hiding, she immediately recognized where his artifacts were from, which unsettled him greatly. But she hasn't done anything evil, but at the same time, she's very clearly a member of this church with all their abilities, so they're not quite sure what to make of her. It's like, is she a good person that's in this church? Is she a bad person and she's really playing it very close to the vest? They just don't know what to do with her yet, and I love that.
Glistening Fox, how I think of it is, it's big and powerful. Let's poke it with our pointy stick. Yeah. Like, it's powerful. Let's go poke it.
But yeah, I love the ambiguity of the villains to make the player characters have to really think about their choices, because that, I think, gives you the best role-playing moments, when the player characters have to slow down and think about, like, is this right? Are we missing something?
I know that we both have players in our games that really don't like that, though.
I mean, Matt does not like moral ambiguity,
Yeah.
I think, but I think he tolerates it in NPCs. He definitely doesn't like to play moral ambiguity or be in a party that is morally ambiguous.
Yeah, and I have someone in my game that's kind of the same way. But I would say he's not as bad as Matt about it.
Yeah.
So there is that. But yeah, there's that. Another thing you could do with your villains is, yeah, don't be afraid. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, the villain layer must have a lot of traps, this, that, the other thing. No, man, put your villain layer in the middle of the goddamn town.
Absolutely.
Make it a business.
Yes. Maybe if, especially the villain has, a good public reputation, like the animated series Lex Luthor started out. You can't just go arrest him. He hasn't done anything wrong as far as most people are concerned.
Yeah.
You can't break into his place. It's in the middle of town. Somebody would see you.
Incoming message.
Oh,
When
yeah.
the villain can use the general public as kind of an extra set of eyes and security force, that can be a very interesting situation.
Yeah. And not to mention the people who work for them
Incoming message.
don't know they're a villain.
Sure.
So there is that.
Yeah, are you going to try and, viciously take down this security guard to break into a place? That security guard doesn't know what he's guarding.
Yeah, he's just doing a job. He's getting paid.
That dude's making $15 an hour.
Yeah. He's just doing his work, man. Nothing major. Just getting a paycheck, going home to the wife and kids. What was it? Go home to the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids.
Yes. 2.5 children.
My type of glistening Fey Fox. My type of humor is different. Oh, we all have odd senses of humor. Everybody does. I mean, heck, we're both Warhammer 40k people here, and we find the humor from that universe amusing.
Yes.
I'm fairly certain if we were put into the personality exam that GLaDOS provides, we would be called horrible people. The test results are in. You are a horrible person. That's funny. We weren't testing for that. It's like, okay.
Oh man, I am getting tired of these beetle guys that spew lightning every time they get hit.
Oh, are you in the desert area?
I am.
Oh, that wonderful place. Gamera's playing Diablo 2, by the way, remastered.
Yes, Diablo 2 Resurrected, in fact.
Resurrected. Yeah, I'm not touching Blizzard games until
Microsoft cleans them up.
yeah.
That's fair.
I at least want to give them a chance to clean up first before just outwardly saying I'm, boycotting them forever.
Yeah. I really had an itch to play a Diablo 2 style game. I've already done Diablo 3 pretty thoroughly. I've got Torchlight and Torchlight 2. They're not quite what I need. Somebody recommended Path of Exile, and I tried that for about an hour, and I did not care for it. So I just was like, you know what? Diablo 2 Remastered is out there. It's one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. Why not?
What else do I have? I have a few others. Let's see if I have anything I would recommend. Bard's Tale, Divinity 2 Original Sin. That's not Diablo-like. That's more D&D-like.
Yeah, I think someone recommended Grim Dawn, which is from the makers of Titan Quest.
Yeah, Grim Dawn I heard was pretty good. Let's see, Iron Danger. That's more D&D-esque, but it has a rewind function to it. I got the Outer Worlds recently. I'll have to try that out sometime. You wouldn't care for it. It's a first-person shooter.
Yeah, I don't do the shooters.
Yeah.
Not
So-
since Duke Nukem 3D.
You'll be waiting until next year. That's what Listening Faye Fox says. Yeah, I'll be waiting until next year. Tales of Symphonia, Torchlight 2, Valkyria Chronicles 4, Complete Edition. Werewolf of the Apocalypse, Vikings, Wolf of Midgard, Vampire. I don't know if you would like Vampire. It's very Dark Soulsy.
I've watched you play it. I mean, it seems okay. It's not necessarily the thing that I would consider my jam, but you know, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, those are the RPGs I know of that I got access to. I have all of the Fallouts, which once me and Inquisition are done with Star Wars, like our current playthrough with the Sith,
Yeah.
we're gonna play Fallout 76,
Oh,
and we're gonna hunt the Mothman
nice.
because he's in the game.
I wish they had done a little more with the whole West Virginia premise of that game, but it
Yeah.
had such a bad launch that I think that just soured a lot of folks on it.
They seem to have fixed it a bunch.
Yeah, I'm told that it has steadily gotten better with like patches and stuff.
It according to the people I know who play it a lot, it is now playable.
I mean, that's good. After what, 2 years?
Yeah. After 2 years, it's playable. It has NPCs now. It actually has like an actual story. Let's see what else I have. Strategy. See if anything maybe is under strategy. Basement, the drug dealing strategy game. Oh, I got that from Humble Bundle. It was part of one of the monthlies. Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. Oh, Dune Spice Wars finally included multiplayer.
Okay.
They finally included that, so that's neat.
Cool.
See, Galactic Civilizations, all that. I got into the Breach with one of the Humble Bundles, but I'll never touch it.
Why?
It's made by the same makers as FTL.
You didn't care for FTL?
I actually got a chance. Like, I was having issues with it for the longest time. I was like, okay, maybe I'm playing it wrong, whatever, because I watched other people play it online.
Yeah.
And I'm like, alright, they're succeeding. What's going on? Why am I messing up? Maybe I'm just playing this badly or something. And so I did a dive into some of the coding.
Yeah.
The numbers they provide in FTL are not the numbers that are showing on the screen.
Huh.
Like, the numbers they show on the screen, it's like, oh, this weapon does X to X damage. There are 8 to 16 factors that are not shown on the screen that affect that damage.
Ah.
So, like, the numbers they show do not do anything.
Gotcha.
You might as well not even pay attention to it.
Now, so you bring up FTL, and that actually kind of raises a question for me. Isn't there Shortest Trip to Earth that's basically a revised remake or something of it? Or
Let me look. You said Shortest Trip to Earth?
I think it's Shortest Trip to Earth, because it basically plays exactly like FTL, and I thought it was by the same people,
Let's see.
but maybe not.
Interactive Fate is the developer. Publishers, Iceberg Interactive. Let me see what FTL is. No, different developer, different publisher.
Okay, well, yeah, I was gonna say it plays almost exactly like FTL, so
Yeah, I noticed that. Like, I'm looking at the pictures. It looks exactly the same.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if they have the rights to FTL and did a remake, or if it's is FTL still being actively updated and developed?
It's on Steam.
Well, that doesn't mean that they're releasing, like, you know, patches and stuff still.
Let me see what Steam said. Let's see. Here's the soundtrack. Should say when was the last time it was updated, doesn't it?
Ah.
Has a release date. Oh, there's view update history. There we go. That's what I want. The last update was January of 2020.
Okay.
And all they did was add achievements.
So yeah, FTL seems like it's maybe done.
Yeah, it probably is. That wouldn't shock me at all. You know, and FTL was a pretty small company, so they may not have the like manpower to go hunting down those who make games similar to them.
Possible. Let's see. FTL, shortest trip to Earth. See if I can Google.
If there's a connection.
Yeah.
There might be, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, somebody who was on the development team of FTL might have left and...
Made a better game.
Yeah.
Because, like, the randomness I found in FTL, there's less randomness in a slot machine. It's like, goddamn.
So, I guess what it seems like is that shortest trip to Earth took FTL and said, this doesn't have enough depth to the gameplay, and they just iterated on it. So they basically added more layers and complexity.
Which made it hopefully better. Who knows?
I mean, I guess it probably made it more appealing to some folks. I haven't really played it enough to, you know, pick up distinguishing differences between it and the other.
Into the Breach is like FTL, but you're in charge of a base and you have to fight off mechs and stuff.
Yeah,
And
I've heard people talk about it.
yeah, it's not good.
Oh.
It has the exact same problems as FTL. Because, like, one of the biggest problems I have with it is anytime one of your base buildings takes damage, you can't fix it.
Okay.
Which makes zero goddamn sense.
Does it just eventually break?
Yeah, and you lose.
Okay, that's troubling and annoying.
Yeah. It's like there's no fixing mechanic of your buildings.
Right.
Which is like, what the hell, man? It's like, you would think that if you have base building as part of it, or like you have base buildings, you would have the ability to fix a building.
Yeah.
Like, I could understand if you couldn't fix your units in the battlefield, that makes sense. But, like, it's a fucking building.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, you should be able to tear it down and rebuild it if it can't be fixed.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. You know, if maybe you can't fix it, but you should be able to replace it. But wow.
Nah. It was just like, okay. But yeah, me and Inquisition are gonna hunt the Mothman.
Neat.
That'll be fun. Another game I want to try though one day is Barrow Trauma.
Barrow Trauma?
Yes. Let me see if I can find it. I think I have it under action. Is it action? No, it might be under horror. Amnesia, coma. I know I have the damn game.
What's it about?
Orchard or in the garden?
Okay. Huh?
Orchard or in the garden?
What?
What I need to build. Think about that for a second.
I don't know what the fuck you're on about. Oh, the buy it box? Hun, no. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, Barrow Trauma. It's a submarine game where you're on an alien planet.
Ah.
and each player takes up a position of the crew, and you have to do like missions.
Okay.
And it can get really terrifyingly bad. Oh, I put it under simulation. Yeah. And like you have to fight off aliens trying to kill your submarine and stuff.
Okay.
And like they can make it leak and all that jazz.
Sure.
It is horrifying.
Landing gear deployed.
Hey, codename TKO, how's it going? Hey man, I'm doing fine. We're talking about D&D villains or tabletop villains and how to basically make a better villain. So we're doing fine. While I earn some rep on Elite Dangerous.
You know, I actually own Elite Dangerous on multiple platforms, and I've never played it.
Do you like a flight sim?
I love flight sims. TIE Fighter was one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh, that's what this game is essentially. It's a flight sim.
Yes.
I'm right now just attempting to mass grind reputation so I can get access to a particular ship from a faction. Normally they want you to like really work on it, but like I found a way to burn the rep faster.
Yeah. What's that?
Stream's going well.
What's that MMO that's like this?
Which one? There's several.
Just the one that everybody plays, and there's constant corporation warfare and people betraying corporations and
EVE Online, otherwise
EVE Online,
also known as Asshole Simulator.
Yes, I was going to say this is like EVE Online without the spreadsheets.
Without the spreadsheets and the sheer number of assholes. No, I mean I've played EVE. I used to play it for almost a year.
Yeah.
There are guys who literally do nothing on EVE but just fly around newbie zones in high-powered ships that are like designed for like people who have played the game for 5+ years and blow up newbies.
Yep.
Because they have nothing better to do than to, make themselves feel better.
Yep.
And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? And like, I was not even like that dangerous of a person. I was not a combat ship. I was a miner. All I was doing was mining the newbie rocks.
And they blew you up.
Yeah. Because they had nothing better to do with their fucking time, apparently.
Yep.
And it's like, are you kidding me?
Every time I get into a political discussion with someone of the libertarian persuasion and about how, their philosophy would make things better, I just want to point at a game like EVE Online and go, really?
Yeah, this is going to make things better. No.
This is the world that you want to build.
Yeah. No, anytime I run into that kind of a person, I basically want to sit them down in front of a computer and force them to play EVE Online for 6 months.
Yeah.
On a high PvP area. And then tell me it's like, yeah, this makes the world better.
Yeah. All right, I'm opening the Tomb of Tal Rasha.
Oh, have fun with that.
Yeah, it's time for Duriel.
Fuck that thing. What class are you playing?
Paladin.
Oh, so you're doing the drummer on meth.
Yep. Zeal go brrrr.
Yeah, Zeal go brrrr. Zeal hits almost as fast as the Gao 8 Avenger. I think it's the Gao 8. Let me check. Or is it Gao 6?
Ooh, he is pretty hardcore.
Oh, I'm being pulled out of hyperspace. You asshole! Stop that. Yeah, it's a Gao 8/A Avenger. Gatling gun. That is the, that is the gun that is at the tip of the A-10 Warthog. I think you know what kind of plane that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tank hunter.
The plane that's pretty much a flying tank. That goes brrr. If I ever play Diablo 2 again, I'm not playing a Necromancer again.
I don't think...
No, I played it once. I had my fun with it.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to try Sorceress or maybe Druid.
Hmm.
Have fun with that. So it is what it is. Yeah, I have up in the corner over there, it's like, help me get a subscription to an MMO. It's like 10 subs. If I can get 10 subs, I can actually start paying for a subscription. I'm going to see if I can't convince people to help me get a sub to Star Wars.
Nice.
That would be nice.
Ooh,
Not to mention they'll have access to all those emotes and shit I have.
That's a pretty good armor.
Oh, you killed him?
Yeah, just barely. Went through all my potions.
Oof. He is quite possibly the hardest boss in the game.
He's just very durable. He just, yeah, hard to deal with on that basis.
Yeah, by the time you reach him, it's just, he is so difficult.
Let's see, let's sell that. That is some amazing armor. I'm gonna keep that.
Yeah.
And that is a set armor.
Yeah.
Do I get a set bonus for 2? I do.
What else do I have currently installed on here? Man, I have a bunch.
Ooh, that's good. That's tempting.
Well, tomorrow I do want to say is Dragon Age, but Monday, since you can't do Stellaris, I found something to do.
Okay.
I'm going to be playing the update of Raft.
Okay.
I got a couple people who want to finish that, and I asked them, do you want to do it Wednesday or Monday? And they said Monday.
Awesome. Glad that's not going to be a problem.
Oh yeah, so that worked out. How much longer? I'm 68% of the rank of Marquis. Jesus.
I think I have to go with the set armor. I mean, the bonuses are just so good.
Oh yeah. Sometimes that happens.
I'm losing 25% faster run, walk, and cast rate,
Oof.
and hit recovery, which hurts.
Yeah,
but
that
I'm gaining
one hurts.
a lot of defense. I'm losing some poison resistance, but I've got good resistances across the board. I'm gaining a bunch of fire damage, 10 points of strength, and thorns damage of 5. Ooh. Yeah, I think I'll try this at least for a while.
Yeah. Trying to think of other good things we could point out about villains, though.
I mean, generally speaking, always make sure that any character you add to your game is fun for you to play. If you find a particular edition, stressful, or you're having trouble coming up with ideas for them, you want to make things easier on yourself as the GM.
Yeah. Don't play a villain that you can't stand.
Yeah. for whatever reason, if it's like, oh well, this villain, he's a spellcaster and it takes me too much time to think of what his spells might be. If it's too much bookkeeping, go with something else. On the same token, if it's a villain that is just too evil, like you've surprised yourself with how evil you've written this guy, and you're just not 100% comfortable playing him, tweak him. Ultimately, you have to be able to run the guy and have fun yourself.
Yeah. And that's what's important. And also make sure that your players don't have issues with him around either. And when I say issues, I'm talking about like actual full-on issues, not like, oh, we just don't like him. No, more of like, I can't be in the room when you talk about this villain.
Yeah.
So make sure that, you don't cross any lines there. That's important. Because, good lord, the last thing you need is someone to have to leave the room because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that has happened on several occasions. Because, miscommunications, people not happy, whatever it may be. And nobody's perfect. Your best hope at that point is just to sit down, talk with the person later, and work something out and change the villain slightly.
Yeah.
And that's important. Also, what else is there? Show that your villain is powerful and evil. Don't just tell.
Yes. Good writing rule in general.
Yeah, that's important. And you don't have to show their power through them. You could have it be their underlings. You could have it be the effect they've had on the area. The best example I've ever heard was actually an anime called Owl House. And I think, let me double check the villain's name. Give me a second. Owl House. Bellows. That was his name, Bellows. And it's called The Owl House is the name of the anime. You see his power throughout the entire show by the effects he's had on society. He's put certain rules on magic where the schools of magic have to be separate. You cannot learn more than one school of magic. There is a particular school everyone has to go to in order to get registered as a mage, essentially. And you could see his effects of his decisions on the common folk and the marketplace and everything else. And so you can utilize things like that to show the power of your villain. Like how they affect society. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because you were quiet for a while. I was like,
I'm playing Diablo as well, so it's just, I'm slightly slower to respond than otherwise I might.
All right, fair enough. I was just worried for a second. I was like, oh god, did I lose him?
No. And going back to my Star Saviors game that I'm running, I have established the main villain's threat basically by his history of conquest. Many of the player characters come from civilizations he's conquered. Some of them have been personally attacked by his allies or underlings. But basically, one of the player characters is the prince of one of the greatest galactic empires that was the first one to be utterly crushed. His culture are magic users and adept with technology. His mother and father, the king and queen, both accomplished spellcasters, and they basically saw this guy coming, gave him the mystical artifacts, and said, "Run."
Yeah, get the fuck out.
And then he presumed they were both killed, but I've dropped some hints that his mother might have survived, so, got to keep him engaged in that way. But yeah, his father was absolutely devastated by this guy. And here's the thing that I'm really proud of myself for doing, and I forget where I've seen similar ideas, but for the session 0 for this game, I usually like to mix the session 0 with a little bit of playing if there's time, especially if I in the group know each other very well, if I'm not introducing new players. So what I did was I had everybody discuss their characters. We made their characters, or we started making their characters. But what I said was, now we're going to do a short combat because Mutants and Masterminds is not something that most of my player characters have a lot of experience with. Mm-hmm. I've made you pre-generated characters, and each of them took on the role of one of the last of the Beacon Knights, which were like a Green Lantern type organization. And this was the Beacon Knights' last stand against this villain. So their job was to save as many people as possible and hold out as long as they could against this guy. So they actually got to fight him with other characters and see how powerful he is before starting the game with their actual characters. So they got a preview battle with the boss, and I think that they really enjoyed that.
That is actually kind of a cool idea, because we've seen that in movies and video games and such.
Yeah.
Where you don't see the main character, but you see, like, alternate characters.
Yes.
Fight the big bad, and they get just decimated. And you have to play through that.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy XII did that.
Yeah.
With the Empire. And the Empire just decimating a small kingdom of Damacia, I think it was.
Sounds familiar, but
I think it was Damacia or whatever the fuck the name was. Dalmaca or whatever. Start with a D.
Sure.
I do not give a fuck enough to remember the actual full name. I just remember it was some tiny ass kingdom that's like, oh yeah, we'll be fine. The Empire won't invade us, and I'm like, yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
You just happen to be in the way. You're dumb. So, I mean, that's definitely a good idea there.
Yeah, they really enjoyed it. And Mutants and Masterminds has the concept of power levels, of how strong a character is. And generally speaking, you all start your PCs at the same power level. So basically, the pre-generated characters that I let them use were at power level 13. And they were not enough to go up against Axivor successfully. Now, they all made it out alive. They saved millions of lives, so they didn't, go down in utter defeat. But they very quickly got the idea that these power level 13 characters weren't enough in a straight-up fight. And then their main characters that they're running for the campaign are starting at power level 10.
Oof.
So it's like, we can't take them in a direct fight. We need to build allies. We need to, find resources, maybe find secret weaknesses.
Something. Yeah,
that way, I was able to show his power. They actually got to see it. And I get to use the lore of the Beacon Knights in the campaign, so later on, if they run into an NPC who's got one of the Beacon Knight armors, they're like, oh man, I know what he can do.
Yeah, we did that. The closest thing I did that was ever close to that was in Traviel, and the party got into one of the towers of the old Taurian Empire. And it has a gateway to the Black Wind in it.
Okay.
So it causes madness there. But it sent them back, not like physically back in time, but like echoey back in time to watch like a previous event.
Yes.
And they watched the fall of the Taurian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got to see exactly how powerful the main evil deity was, which was Tornarch. who was the deity of the Taurian Empire. And the fact that, like, he was able to take on multiple major gods and win. And it took, like, it took the over-deity stepping in to stop him. And the party went, fuck, we need to seriously step up our game to deal with this guy. Like, they didn't get to do it, and I feel like that would have been more effective.
Right.
But they at least got to see it. And so that was kind of neat. They eventually did kill him, though.
Yeah.
Which caused 2 of the players to become deities. Which was the half-orc transmutation sorcerer and the Asimar cleric. Who were the 2 became deities.
Yeah.
Which was amusing. Because everybody else is like, no, we're not going to absorb the divine power because that means we have to no longer touch the divine plane, the mortal plane anymore.
Yeah.
And we rather like people. So, like, these 2 took the sacrifice of not ever seeing their family and friends again to, you know, weaken Tornarch when he came back. Because he was eventually going to regenerate because of his belief. Like, people believing in him.
Right.
And that was like, God damn it.
Incoming mission critical message.
But
That
yeah,
was fun.
showing and not telling is always a nice thing to remember when doing any kind of fiction.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like, they kind of did a mixture, a little much on the telling. For example, in Star Wars with Darth Vader, they kept saying that he was powerful and kept saying he was powerful, but there was one instance where they did show that Vader was powerful, at least in the original movie, and that was the original scene he was in.
Yeah, the striding onto the blockade runner.
Yeah, the striding on, just kind of nonchalantly looking at the dead bodies and just going, okay, whatever, and just walking on like a boss.
Yep.
Yeah, that is possibly the best example of showing Vader being powerful. Because you could still hear the blaster fire in the background. And he's just like, fuck it, whatever. He does not care. But I think the best example of showing Vader's power was actually not in the original Star Wars movies.
Okay.
It was hands down Rogue One.
Okay.
Like, have you seen Rogue One?
I have, yes.
Yeah. The hallway. At the end.
Absolutely.
Like, he just nonchalantly just murders everything in the hall. And, like, you can tell he's not breaking a sweat even the slightest. He's not straining himself.
Nope.
And he's just nonchalantly taking out a whole hallway full of guys with guns.
Yeah. It's actually, I really like Rogue One.
Yeah. Rogue One is a very well-made Star Wars movie.
Yep.
They did a good job with it. Like, I liked it. I haven't seen Solo. It's kind of on my to-watch list. So, I don't have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
So, there is that. I am kind of waiting, though, for, in terms of sci-fi stuff, the next season of the 2 Star Trek shows. Because those I'm hoping are going to be good.
I haven't started watching Strange New Worlds yet, but I just keep hearing nothing but good things.
I haven't started watching that. I'm talking about Discovery and Picard.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Strange New Worlds eventually, though. So, there is that. Like, but I did see a video recently that did make a supposition, and it's an interesting one, involving villains, actually.
Okay.
A lot of people say in Star Trek, Khan is one of the greatest villains in Star Trek.
Okay.
This guy argues Khan is not the greatest villain. Kai Wynn is the greatest villain. Because she is so good at like emotionally and mentally taking someone down, and she does like these underhanded attacks, but can't be fully traced to her, kind of thing.
Yeah, she's more social villain.
Yeah. And like watching his videos, like I kind of want to agree with him, but at the same time not. Like she's a good villain, and she should deserve more credit than she gets, don't get me wrong. But I definitely not label her as the greatest villain in Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of good contenders.
I mean, like, for the original series, I mean, we got Khan. Khan is pretty much the big contender for the original series.
He is, of course, the problem with the original series is, none of your villains really recur, so they don't get a chance to develop their characters. But, yeah, I mean, he's definitely a strong one-episode wonder. Trelane is another good one. Gary Seven is an interesting antagonist, but not a villain.
I'd give you that.
Gary Mitchell is who I was trying to think of. My brain went to Gary Seven. Gary Mitchell, he's infected by this cosmic power. Very interesting, to see one of Kirk's allies kind of turned against him in that way. So yeah, I mean, Khan is just very, very strong. We've had some very good Klingons in the original series that are very engaging. Yeah.
Core is good. For next gen, though, if I was going to put anyone as a great villain for next gen, it would have to be Sela.
Okay. Yeah, she's got multiple appearances. She definitely causes some trouble. She's got a good personal connection.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I like her better than the Galron sisters. Oh, not the Galron sisters.
Or
the Duras.
The Duras sisters, yes.
Duras sisters. Why did I think? I was like, my brain just went to hell on that one. Yeah, she was better than the Duras sisters.
Yeah.
The Borg are kind of like an existential threat, so I wouldn't necessarily say they're a single villain that was really good.
Q is questionably a villain.
I would say he's more of like an examiner, if anything.
That's fair. Q is one of my favorite just bastards.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
God, I just had the character's name in my head. Lore.
Yes.
Lore is a good villain too, but I feel like Sela one-ups him in terms of longevity.
That's fair. I'm trying to think who else is an excellent villain of quality.
Well, in Deep Space Nine, we got several.
Yeah, I'm less familiar with Deep Space Nine, because I've missed a good portion of it.
Yeah, we got Dukat.
Gul Dukat, and didn't Dukat originally appear on Next Gen?
Yes. He originally appeared in Next Gen in one episode.
Yes.
And then for dealing with the Maquis.
Yes. Dukat, I think, is a solid villain.
He's a solid villain. Wayun is a good villain. As much of a pain in the ass he is.
Mm-hmm.
And And then there's Win. Win is a good villain.
Yeah.
For Voyager,
Ugh.
I hate this. There's nobody like the freaking Kazon guys. None of them are good villains.
No, Voyager, that's one of the weaknesses. It just doesn't have great villains.
Okay. Yeah. The closest thing Voyager has to a good reoccurring villain is the Borg Queen.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only thing I would even remotely consider a decent villain in Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
That was lasting more than a single episode.
Yeah.
Like anything more other than that. Discovery.
I've seen 3 episodes, so I'm not going to be able to weigh in decisively on Discovery.
I'm gonna say season 2 Control was interesting. It's like a Borg, proto-Borg.
Okay.
So I wouldn't call it a single villain, but it's there.
Right.
There's nobody that really stands out as a villain in Discovery. They usually deal with more existential threats.
Yeah, they kind of stumble from big crisis to big crisis.
Yeah. Picard season 1. The Romulan siblings.
Yes, I did enjoy them.
They're good villains, especially the brother.
Yeah.
Like, because when I first saw them, I expected the brother to be the one that was very hot-headed, not really, waiting and all that jazz. And the female to be the passionate, the patient one.
Right.
And it was nice to see that reversed.
Yeah.
That was very well done. Second season, Q as the villain was interesting, but not necessarily like he was a full villain, though. He's still like the antagonist, but not the villain.
Yeah.
Dr. Sung was kind of a meh villain. So there is that.
I mean, we skipped right over Enterprise. Don't you want to talk about Enterprise?
Oh yeah, Enterprise. Jesus, I forgot about that. Nobody in season 1 really stuck to me as a villain. Neither in season 2.
Yeah.
The only villains I saw in season 3 were the reptilians and the sphere builders.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was mostly joking because, again, that's just not a very strong villain series.
No. No, Discovery tried in season 3, or was it 4? I think it was 4 was the one with the 10C. And that was the one where they introduced a scientist named Tarka, who was this kind of like, I must get home kind of guy, when in reality he just wanted to get to an alternate reality to meet his friend, who was probably dead.
Interesting.
And it was just very much like, they tried making Tarka out to be like the ultimate villain, and it just didn't work. Like, he did a lot of dumb things. I was like, okay. Like, the big existential crisis still worked, and it worked beautifully, but the villain just didn't.
Yeah.
And that happens. You can still have a good existential crisis and make the show still decent, but have a shit villain.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's true.
Oh, man. And that's... I'm trying to think. Oh, villains in D&D, by the way, or tabletops. Never be afraid to make them do unorthodox things. Like, in my Seafaring campaign, the assassin and poisoner is actually a druid. Like, he has mostly levels in Druid. He has a couple levels in Rogue, but not a lot. He's mostly Druid.
Right on.
Because all those animal shape-shifting abilities are just so useful to get into places.
And all that nature knowledge and herb lore probably helps mix poisons.
Okay. Just the deer ate them all? The deer have been eating our trees and roses.
Huh.
Lovely. We had a big hornet nest on our newly built porch.
No, outside, sorry.
Oh, stairs outside. Okay, our bad.
Yeah. It buzzed me as I went down the stairs earlier. So I came back and attached the hose to the side of the house and then lit the nest on fire.
Okay.
And then I had the hose ready so I could soak it down so it didn't burn the wood.
Fair enough. Oh, hey, kill it with fire.
They're hornets. You murder them. You marry them with unity.
They're assholes with wings.
It kept buzzing me, and I could tell you it was the queen because that's the only one that was in there. That was big.
Mmm.
I didn't get her.
Alright. So, let us see what is going on. Because it's about 9 o'clock.
It is.
Double checking on some things. Alright. Alright, who are we going to say hello to today? Let's see, we got someone playing, Cole Carnage is playing Raft. A lot of people are going to be doing that because they finished Raft.
Cool.
Like, this latest update was finishing the game. It's now at 1.0.
Very cool.
Let's see, Ilana Orama is playing RimWorld. Pathless. Sea of Thieves. Thor's Dadbot is playing Phasmophobia. Golden Server's playing Apex Legends. A lot of Escape from Tarkov's today. We have a Diablo 3.
Classic.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. Rust, Monster Hunter Rise, Overwatch. Let's see who we can do today. I am not sure.
When you said Rust and then Monster Hunter Rise, you ran them together, and I thought you meant Rust Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be a hell of a game.
Yeah, it's like, fuck! Yeah, that would be frightening, to say the least. I hope you don't have metal on you. Because that'll end bad. Oh, Phasmo got an update too. Oh, goody. Good God. So many people got updates. Alright, we're waiting for an ad to get by so we know, see where it's going. The ad is taking forever. Okay, we're gonna pay this while we're waiting for it to load. How far are we down? Marquee is at 93%. God damn. Alright. Yeah, looks like they're having their fun. Alright, let's we haven't rated him in a while. So is it Thor's Dadbot? Thor's Dadbot. There we go. So with that being said, I hope to see you all tomorrow for Wildcard Wednesday, where I'll be playing some Dragon Age. Because I'm going to continue dealing with dwarves. If you are a follower, by the way, please use the following message when we get to Thor's chat. If you're a subscriber, by all means, please use the following message. Show Thor some love, because he's a good guy and all that jazz. And I will see you all tomorrow at 7. Now, remember, Sunday we are having an extra live stream. I'm going to be starting it in the morning, and I'm going to be continuing it through most of the day. I'm going to be, anybody who donates $10 to Extra Life will be getting a free game from my giant game list that I have to give away.
Cool.
So I have quite a bit of games to give. All it takes is donating $10. Alright? So I will see you all tomorrow. Alright? Toodles.
Doodles.